So this is part one of an idea that I had, was to read several of my blogs that I had written while I was out of the race. Some of my personal favorites, both fun and some that are deep, and some that are deal with tough topics. And in case I ever lose my word race blog site, I will have at least all my favorite words re-recorded. And hopefully, if you watch these, then hopefully you might get encouraged by them, or just laugh at me. So, in case you might not know this, but May is Mental Health Month. And so the first blog that I'm going to be reading is my blog that I wrote while I was in Cambodia. And it tells pretty much the main part of my testimony and why I'm here talking to you and not dead. So Cambodia was an interesting time for me, for the squad, because we had just received new teams, new leadership was being raised up within the squad, and so everybody was we all lived together, but we all had different missions and posts and things to do. So it was really a coming and going, and all this time too we were all struggling with trying to build a relationship with our new teammates. So a lot of my blogs from my month in Cambodia kind of have this sad tone to them, and kind of dark themed. But it was also a time where I really reflected on my story, my testimony, why I was out of the word race, and all this. And so I kind of took a cue from my squad mates who started to write more and more personal blogs about their struggles with SID and their identity and all that. So I decided to write a blog about my testimony and part of my story, as well as in this blog I talk about two things that were kind of the light that kept me going. So anyways, the blog is called Inside My Head. I was born and raised in a Christian home and was baptized into the Presbyterian Church as an infant, and practically grew up in the church. This was where my Christian identity was founded, as I had accepted Christ into my heart at a young age. But I didn't take it seriously until my senior year of high school. I went off to college, graduated 4 years, and then began my career working for the U.S. government. Once I had entered the workforce, slowly my mindset began to change. And as a result of my faith and my Christian identity took a hit. Before, I would go to church on Sunday, but in my line of work, if you worked on Sunday, it meant more money, which to me meant more money in my paycheck, more fun. I fell into this cycle, and before I knew it, I had given up going to church. And over time, I had eventually lost my Christian identity and all that was associated with church and being a Christian. In the end, my desire to make money took over, and I put my career first before God and church. During this time, I was living my best life. When I wasn't working, I was out having fun in so many ways. And living in a big city only added to my desires. And there were times that I would enjoy a drink more than I would normally. I had gone from a good person to a prideful, cocky, self-centered, greedy workaholic. And I stayed that way. My Christian identity was law of God, as I didn't even have a Bible in my place. And it got even to the point that I didn't even see the point of prayer. I had an attitude of that everything that I got was out of pure luck and not anything from God. I had officially shut God out of my life. Then, out of nowhere, my life went downhill. November 2008. 3 things happened during this month that would change my life. The economy crashed. I discovered Bible study fellowship. And a little black and white Pomeranian named Chase came into my life. And those last 2 things would end up to be a huge blessing for me, as those were 2 things that kept me going during this time. I had just finished my second long-term seasonal job with the National Park Service, and I was home when the economy crashed. At first, I really didn't think much of it and how it would affect me. But as time passed, I ended up being just one of the millions of people who were long-term unemployed because of it. 2009 through the summer of 2012, my dark time. I must admit that early on during what ended up being in my dark time, I had remained hopeful about finding a job that was in my field and not in the food or retail business, as at the time I felt like both of these lines of work were beneath me. So I continued to do it my way, and the thought of asking God for His guidance never really crossed my mind. As the weeks and months stretched into years, I still had no job. I was getting frustrated, for I was beginning to question what was wrong with me, that no one would hire me. I began to have feelings of self-doubt and lack of self-worth, which would lead to unhealthy habits and self-esteem issues, which would then lead me to gain weight to the point of, by the end of it, I weighed well over 250 pounds. And I felt like crap all around, which would also lead to poor body image views of myself. As a result, I was physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually broken, and had become severely depressed about it all. But no one knew that at the time, because I had sucked it up and hid my real emotions. By the summer of 2012, I had reached my breaking point. I felt like I wasn't loved by anyone. My relationships, social life was either being strained or non-existent. I felt like I was a burden on everyone, and honestly felt like the world would be a better place without me. I had thoughts of committing suicide, and I had it all planned out as to when and how I was going to do it. A couple months before I had planned to do it, I was broken, and in turn gave one final plea to God to help me as a way to test Him to see if He really cared about me or not. God responded in a way of me being asked to be an adult chaperone for the high school youth mission trip to Kokomo, Indiana. I was reluctant to go, but I obeyed and went on the trip. Over the course of that week, God showed me what I had hoped for, and that compared to others, my life was good, and that He did indeed want to pursue me. And while I did not know it, He had great plans for me, but only if I chose to go back to Him and surrender it all to Him. I gave Him my yes, and I felt as if a weight had been lifted off of me. 4 months later, God blessed me with a job in the retail world at Target. No less. But I took it and kept it for almost 6 years before God called me to leave that job and be a missionary for a year. That's a whole nother blog right there. The story behind that. So, as I mentioned above, Bible Study Fellowship, or BSF, was what turned out to be a saving grace, one of the saving graces to me throughout all this, and even to this day. And here's kind of the backstory on that. BSF also turned out to be a huge blessing to me in the way that it helped me build relationships with other young adults who were Christian, and gave me back a social life which had been lacking for all those years. Attending BSF also helped me to reestablish my Christian identity, and that was a huge lift for me, given how much of a big deal it was for me growing up and having that church community again. It was because of that reason that I put more of a priority on once again going to church on most Sundays. And that in turn has led to a huge blessings in my life by means of awesome friendships, specifically with 2 people. And I will talk about those in a different blog. As mentioned before, a little black and white Pomeranian had come into my life at the beginning. I had Chase in my life for 11 years before I had to put him down in April of 2018 due to complications from cancer. During my dark time, Chase was one of the things that motivated me to get up each day, as I felt a duty to take care of him, and it gave me a sense of worth because Chase needed me and I needed him, as he helped to save my life. I would talk to him and he would always listen, never judging me. So yeah, that is my testimony to my faith, and I still struggle at times with fear and doubt. But now I know how to deal with those times in a healthy way. I am loving my life now more than ever, and I give all the glory to God for that, because without Him, I am nothing. Until next time. So yeah, that was my blog that I wrote during month 5 in Cambodia. One of many I wrote that month because I was quite the blogger. The squad, I was one of the few people that wrote a ton of blogs. I mean, I wrote over 100 blogs over the course of the 11 months that I was gone. So yeah, that's a bit about my story and pretty much the bulk of my testimony right there. As I said, I hope it encourages anybody out there. If you are the fence about your belief, or if you struggle with mental illness, know that you are worth it. That there are people that love you. Because those were probably the two biggest lessons that I realized after I wrote this blog. As well as the comments that people wrote to me. So yeah, it's just amazing what you could do if you open up your heart and be vulnerable and be real. As I've said before, I'm a type 8. So for me to be open and to be vulnerable, it's not natural. And so writing this blog was a huge step for me, because this is probably one of the most vulnerable personal blogs that I wrote. There's a few other blogs that I read too that are pretty deep, where I share openly about things and my relationships with God, as well as the relationships that I had with my fellow squad mates. I've got a couple blogs that I read about that. So yeah, I would just read a couple of these. Like, here's from my teammate at the time, her comment. Bonnie, I am so proud of you for this post. Your vulnerability is so inspiring. Thank you so much for writing this blog. They conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. For they did not have love in their lives in the face of death. Revelation 12:11. You conquer the enemy by sharing this, and because of it, someone else will be able to overcome. Love you. And that was from my teammate, Andrea. And then another one of my new teammates, Sky, she wrote to me, "Wow, Bonnie, this is such a powerful story. I love your heart to keep pushing, to fight for more of God, and to pursue His will at any cost. You are incredible, and I'm honored to know you, to do life with you, and to be your teammate." So, yeah, those just two of the comments from my new teammates at the time. And then I would later go on to serve with them in Cambodia, Albania, Serbia, Romania. And I will also share stories from my time with them as well that I put into blogs. So yeah, that is my first blog post. I promise to share some fun ones too. They aren't all going to be deep and dark like this one. I do have some crazy fun blogs too. But yeah. So yeah, so I hope people see this and hear it and subscribe to me, and they get to hear more about my faith, my journey, and in reality how much being out of the world race has changed me from the person that talked about in this blog to more of my other the blogs later on. So anyways, that's all for now. See ya.